Welcome everybody to this, our first Taff Vale 28 in detail video. This is going to be part of an occasional series following the restoration of Taff Vale 28, where we'll go and look at detail of some of the parts that we'll be working on and that make up the finished locomotive. Unfortunately, during 2020, the global pandemic has made it very difficult for us to continue with the restoration, with limited access to the loco and time on site. However, that hasn't stopped us working on some of the parts. In front of us on the screen, you can see the blower valve from the loco. Now, this is a relatively simple valve. All it does is open and close a little valve inside. But it's actually a very important part. Now, the blower valve puts steam from the boiler through to the smoke box, and when the loco's standing in the station, you can open the blower and get some draft on the fire so you can build your fire up. We believe that this blower valve is actually original to the locomotive, and I'll show you in a minute there are a few markings on it that make us think that. It's also been modified during its time, and I'll show you that when I dismantle the valve in a minute. Now, when Taff Vale 28 was cosmetically restored at the Taff Railway back in 2013, when the loco moved down to the Gwilly Railway, a large number of parts moved with it. However, this blower valve wasn't one of them, and we actually thought for a number of years that the blower valve had been lost. Fortunately, in late 2019, we were contacted by the Taff Railway, who'd found a number of parts in their stores, and this happened to be just one of those. Interestingly, one of the strange things about the valve was that it was totally black at the time. This dates back to the time from the Caerphilly Railway Society, where they suffered a large number of thefts, and as a result they painted all the brass and bronze parts on the loco black. This actually helped in identifying the valve because it made it very distinctive in its painted black colours, and it was only when we cleaned it off and found the markings underneath that we confirmed with the drawings that it did actually belong to Taff Vale 28. On the screen now you can see a picture showing the valve as it was when we collected it. As you can see, it looks a lot different to now, and it's had a considerable amount of cleaning done to it since then. Okay, so I'm now going to dismantle the valve so you can see how it works. But first of all, let me show you a few markings on the valve. So hopefully if I can get this in front of the camera. If we can see that there. Hopefully you can just make out there is 28 stamped on it. And it's also stamped November 1939, which is quite intriguing. That would actually put it around the time when the loco was at the Longmoor Military Railway. We've also got a top marked, and there's actually two tops on this. I'll explain why in a minute. And it's also got a marking of 29, which is quite intriguing, because that suggests it was on another locomotive at some point in its life. You can see the handle that operates the flange itself and the body, and then there's the face that meets the boiler, so you've got an in and an out in there. So if you take the valve itself, we can take a little nut off the top that holds the handle on, and we can lift the handle off. You can see the handle is a beautiful casting. We then have the actual gland nut, so that is the gland nut, and in there you would have a packing ring, and that's basically what seals it to stop the steam coming out. Now if I unscrew this, so this is the actual valve body part. It does come out, trust me. There we have the valve and the valve stem. Now if I can get it out of here, on the end of the valve stem here you'll see we have a little floating valve. So this is a floating type valve. Now this actually isn't original. Originally the locomotive would have had a traditional sort of tapered type valve on here, and that then would have sealed against the seat in the bottom here. Now I don't know if you can see that, but there's actually a flat seat in there. So that's a modification that's been made to the valve at some point in its life. Also, you can see on the thread form here, the thread is actually very poor. Now it actually doesn't look like it's worn, it actually looks like it's been made back that way. So I suspect this is a replacement valve stem. Unfortunately though, you'll see it is very loose in there, so we'll be making a new replacement valve stem. And the last little bit hidden away in here, we've got a little packing ring that sits in there, which just is used to compress the packing. So there we are, very quickly in a few minutes. That's the valve disassembled, and we can put it back together very quickly. We put the valve stem back in and the valve back in, and that goes down into the body. Screw the body back in. There we are. The gland nut goes back in after that. And then the handle goes back on top along with the nut. So I hope that was a couple of minutes to just interestingly show you the valve and the way it's assembled and what's inside there. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video.